It was just another quiet night on patrol for officers John Tinsley and Hank Allen, stationed near the highway exit. John, still fresh out of training, was eager to prove himself, while Hank, the seasoned veteran, had seen it all before and was wary of anyone who didn't fit the mold. Hank was sipping his lukewarm coffee when a sleek black van caught his eye. Something about it didn't sit right. "Pull him over," Hank muttered, narrowing his eyes. John, always eager for action, signaled the driver to stop. Little did they know, the man in the van wasn't just any driver. He was Thomas Lancer, the head of internal affairs at the Brimwood Police Department, the very person responsible for keeping officers like them in check. As Thomas rolled down the window, his calm demeanor was the perfect contrast to the tension in the air. "Evening, officers," he said smoothly. Hank's suspicion grew when he saw the name on the ID, Thomas Lancer. This wasn't just a regular citizen. This was someone who could make or break their careers. Hank's tone turned sharp. "License and registration, please." Thomas handed over the documents without hesitation, but as Hank scanned the ID, his expression faltered. "Why were you speeding?" Hank asked, even though there was no evidence of speeding. He was grasping for something, anything, to justify the stop. "I wasn't speeding," Thomas replied calmly. "Is there a problem, officer?" John, sensing the growing tension, exchanged uneasy glances with Hank. He knew who Thomas was. Everyone did. And he wasn't sure they should be pushing this further. But Hank, stubborn as always, wasn't ready to back down. "You sure about that?" Hank pressed. "Maybe we should search the car, just to be sure." Thomas remained unfazed. "If you insist, but I'd remind you, I am the head of internal affairs. I trust you're aware of the protocols in dealing with me." The words hit like a punch to the gut, but Hank wasn't backing down. He gestured for Thomas to step out of the vehicle. "Step out, Mr. Lancer." John hesitated, his unease growing as he watched the situation unfold. Thomas stepped out slowly, his expression unreadable. "This is highly unusual, officers," he said, his voice steady. "Is there a specific reason for this search?" John quickly jumped in, trying to diffuse the tension. "Routine check, sir, nothing personal." But Hank, determined to push forward, ignored John's nervous glance and started searching the car. Minutes later, frustration crept onto Hank's face as he found nothing. He slammed the door shut too hard, catching Thomas's attention. "Are we done?" Thomas asked quietly, his calm gaze never leaving Hank. Hank, grumbling, wasn't ready to let it go. "Let's check the trunk," he demanded. John's eyes widened. "Hank, that's enough," he urged. "We've done what we needed to do." But Hank motioned for Thomas to pop the trunk, still determined to prove something. With a resigned sigh, Thomas complied, opening it to reveal only work materials and a spare tire. Just as Hank leaned closer to inspect, Thomas pulled his police badge from his pocket, raising it for both officers to see. "I think we're done here, officers," Thomas said firmly. His voice carried authority, making John's stomach drop. Hank stepped back, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. John could feel the air grow thick with tension. "You know," Thomas continued, his gaze fixed on Hank, "misuse of authority isn't something I take lightly. I'll be filing a full report on this incident. Brimwood doesn't need officers who think they're above the law." Hank clenched his fists, unable to argue. John, sensing the gravity of the moment, stepped forward, his voice shaky. "Mr. Lancer, we were just doing our job. There was no harm meant." Thomas gave him a faint smile. "John, I can see you're new. I'll make sure your efforts are noted. But Hank here, well, that's another story." Hank's face drained of color. He mumbled to himself, "This is going to ruin me." As Thomas turned to walk back to his van, he left them with one last chilling reminder. Next time, officers, think twice before you pull someone over without cause. Justice isn't just a word, it's what holds us all to account. With that, Thomas drove off into the night, leaving Hank and John standing in stunned silence. The weight of his words lingered, a powerful reminder that authority came with responsibility, and the abuse of it had serious consequences. For both officers, it was a lesson they would never forget.